December of 2009, I stared into my manager's face as she fired me. And as I was turning to leave, a coworker looked at me and said, "You know, Katie, I'm really not that surprised. You have more cooking magazines on your desk than you do pharmaceutical magazines." I didn't like the girl, but she was right. I was a biotech consultant who just wanted to make food for others. What followed was a year of listless unemployment where I kept up with the food blog, and then I also sold food at the underground market. But I only did so much to get my feet wet, but I never jumped in. So starting a restaurant is like this huge, looming, kind of amorphous idea with no clear place to start. So I didn't. However, this all changed when I got an email from Valerie.
It was January 2011, and it was a week away from the Lunar New Year. I, like Katie, knew I wanted to do something in food, but I had no idea. I was fresh out of college. I was traveling and filling up tons of notebooks of what a food business could look like. And when I got back, I fell into a 4-month rut where I didn't do anything until I had an idea to do a Vietnamese pop-up on the Vietnamese New Year. So I wrote Katie an email. I said, "Hey, Katie, hope you're doing well. Wouldn't it be cool if we set up a Vietnamese pop-up somewhere in the Mission? It would be cool if we set up little red stools, selling some food on the sidewalk like they do in Vietnam." So as you can tell by the email, it was very bare bones of an idea, but it was enough to get us started.
So this is when everything changes. This is when we fell into a pop-up state of mind. So as Valerie said, we only need stools, food, sidewalk. And we had 7 days to figure out the rest, which meant that we had to move fast. So we met at a cafe, hashed out different ideas, concepts, and then later that night went on a walk through the Mission to find a place for our new pop-up. We looked at different alleyways and we looked at different parking lots trying to envision where our stools could be, where our pho could be. But it wasn't until about Valencia and 20th when we chanced upon this big, beautiful blue house with this cherry blossom tree in full bloom. We're like, this is too good. We got to do it. So we walked up to the door, knocked on it, and the door was opened by a kind of stony, dreary-eyed Russian guy. He introduced himself as Yasha and invited us in, invited us to smoke some weed. But we were like, no, we got to get down to business. We got to move fast. So we were like, okay, so we have this idea. It's called a pop-up. It's going to be for like 2 or 3 hours. We're going to sell pho. We're going to sell noodles. Oh, yeah, it's going to be in 4 days. Is that cool? And surprisingly, he said yes.
So once we got the space, we got our friend Jess to make a poster with the little red stools. We wrote and sent out a press release and got boyfriends and friends to help us for the night. And there was something in involving others that transformed the idea from just a really cool idea for a pop-up into something that was actually happening. And from there, we made it happen.
Commitments were made.
And there was something about me linking up with Katie, us linking up with Yasha, Jess, the graphic designer, our friends and our boyfriends, that gave energy to the project. Every person gave energy to the project, and from there we gained momentum.
It really lit a fire under our asses. I mean, I was driving to the sunset to get stools, and then going to go get some food, and then trying to go cook some food and find some gas burners. We really didn't even have time to cross our fingers that people would come.
But they did. Over 100 people came until we were sold out of food. And when Katie and I were finally able to look up from our cooking stations, we saw people lined up on the terrace, spilling out to the sidewalk in Valencia. And we saw people eating glass noodles and chicken wings on the steps that led up to Yasha's door. And one of our favorite visuals were these 2 kids eating snail pho on the sidewalk, just like they would in Vietnam.
And not only that, I looked to my left, and my boyfriend is frying imperial rolls, and he's never fried an imperial roll. I looked to my right, and Valerie's boyfriend's taking orders, and then I look down the stairs, and I see our friends running out with dishes. And I realized that we had put something into motion that ended up being larger than ourselves. It's scarier to live in anticipation than to just do something. So we did it.
And it was a success. So we did it every month in a different location with a different menu. And eventually we knew we wanted to turn this pop-up project into a business.
Getting legit meant that we had to move into a commercial kitchen. And it's probably the scariest place I've ever been. I mean, there's people with 10 years of experience like running behind you, and then there's culinary students chopping up a storm. And I'm standing there with my new clogs, my knife roll, wondering if there's a place at the table for me. And in those situations, I realized I had nothing to lose, so I might as well just trust my experience. And this became most apparent when I had to chop scallions. Now, chopping scallions isn't easy. First of all, they get smushed, and they look horrible when they're not done well, and they make you cry. And I'm standing there, with a mountain of scallions in front of me. I'm like, all right, just got to do it, So I start chopping, and third, fourth bunch, I totally get into the rhythm of it. And it's great. I mean, I bust through those scallions. And in retrospect, no, I did not have any conventional training, but I did have 17 years of violin experience. And I know you guys know what that means. If you've ever practiced violin 1 hour a day, every single day for 17 years, your arm develops this amazing muscle memory, and you go really fast. It's just like chopping scallions. And my mother would be so proud of me for saying that. But seriously, it was as if skills from another lifetime were helping me in this one, which is super comforting when you think you're starting from zero.
And the same goes for me. I didn't go to culinary school, and I don't cook, but I do ask a lot of questions. And part of it's because I'm really nosy, but also because I did journalism for 6 years, and I had to go to different communities and ask all sorts of people anything, anytime. And this came in handy when we were knocking on doors on the mission and finally found Yash's. And it was also super handy for our second pop-up. I was walking by 20th and Shotwell one day when I saw this beautiful warehouse, brick on the outside, beautiful industrial garage roll-up door, and it reminded me of the Vietnamese women that would sell street food in auto shops in Vietnam. And I could just imagine our little red stools framed by this beautiful doorway, and I knew I had to ask. And with my journalism experience, I knew that whenever I had a hunch or an inclination to ask someone something, I had to go for it, or otherwise I would second guess myself. And by asking, going off that hunch, it could lead to a story, a really good quote, or in this case, a pop-up space. So I poked my head in, like I do in a lot of situations, and climbed up the stairs until I found James, the owner. And I asked him straight up, can we pop up here in 4 days and sell some food and we'll give you some banh mi? And he said yes. And it caught me off guard because he said yes so fast. And I was like, don't you want references or my business name or my website or something? But from there I learned that I could have easily walked by this warehouse and not have gone in. And from there, the second pop-up would have never happened.
The idea could have died, but it didn't. Dormant ideas burden the soul. And between us, there are plenty of ideas that have been conceived, but not necessarily grown. And I'm sure in this room, there's 300 ideas that are just waiting for their own pop-up. A pop-up state of mind isn't the end-all be-all. It's not the answer, but it's definitely a starting point. It's a way to get past those mental barriers, the uncertainties, and most of all, the excuses. So for us, it involves moving fast, involving our friends or others, and trusting our experience.
With Rice, Paper, Scissors, our business, we feel like it could have gone 2 ways. We could have spent months coming up with names, finding investors, and thinking about it, but not actually doing anything. We feel like with a pop-up state of mind, we were able to break through the bullshit and just make it happen. So we learned through all our experiences that you don't have to figure it all out before you start. With a pop-up, anything's possible. And we hope that with this mindset, it can do the same for you. Thank you.